May 7th, 2021. The largest fuel pipeline in the United States, Colonial Pipeline, is struck by a cyber attack that sends shockwaves through the nation's energy infrastructure. What seemed like a routine business day would quickly spiral into a crisis with global implications. It begins with a ransomware attack. Cybercriminals from a group known as DarkSide infiltrate Colonial Pipeline's network, exploiting known vulnerabilities in the company's systems. The attackers first gain access to Colonial Pipeline's corporate IT network before pivoting to the critical operational technology, or OT network that controls the pipeline's fuel distribution systems. Once inside, DarkSide's malware encrypts the data on these systems, rendering them unusable and forcing the company to shut down the pipeline entirely to avoid further damage. At the same time, the attackers deploy a ransomware note demanding a ransom of nearly $5 million in Bitcoin. The attackers made their presence known with a simple message: pay the ransom or face the consequences. This wasn't just a business transaction, it was an attack on a critical piece of US infrastructure. But how did DarkSide pull off such a sophisticated attack? It all begins with a method known as initial access, gaining a foothold inside Colonial Pipeline's systems. According to the FBI and cybersecurity experts, DarkSide initially breached the network through a compromised password on a virtual private network, or VPN, account. The attackers utilized a stolen VPN credential to bypass Colonial's defenses, accessing the company's internal network. While the VPN was not multi-factor authenticated, the attackers quickly escalated privileges once inside, moving laterally through the network to locate and gain access to more critical systems. Cybersecurity expert ransomware attacks like this often exploit vulnerabilities that companies haven't patched or secured properly. Colonial had not enabled multi-factor authentication on their VPN, which allowed the attackers to use a single set of credentials to infiltrate the system. From there, they were able to move deeper into the network. Once inside, DarkSide used advanced techniques, including deploying living off-the-land tools already present in the environment, to escalate their access. The attackers used remote access tools, or RATs, and network management software to further infiltrate the network, all while avoiding detection for as long as possible. The malware then encrypted Colonial's data and forced the company to disconnect its IT systems from the operational technology, or OT networks, that control the pipeline's physical infrastructure. By targeting the OT network, the attackers effectively halted fuel deliveries from Texas to the East Coast, disrupting a critical link in the nation's fuel supply chain. Though Colonial Pipeline had implemented some cybersecurity measures, the ransomware attack still wreaked havoc because of the interconnected nature of their systems. The encrypted data crippled communication and monitoring systems, leaving the company unable to effectively manage its operations. As the magnitude of the attack became clear, Colonial Pipeline faced a hard decision. While the FBI and government agencies advised against paying the ransom, the company had few options. Their systems were paralyzed, and there was no clear path to restore operations without the decryption key. Cybersecurity expert: paying the ransom is controversial. On one hand, paying ensures immediate recovery, but on the other, it incentivizes the cybercriminals and could make the company a target in the future. Colonial Pipeline ultimately decided to pay the ransom, almost $5 million in Bitcoin, to regain control of their systems. The transaction was made. And though the decryption keys were delivered, it wasn't an immediate fix. The pipeline would remain offline for several days as technicians worked to restore operations and verify the integrity of their systems. While Colonial Pipeline systems were down, the effects of the attack rippled across the country. Gas shortages ensued, particularly in the southeast, as the pipeline delivered nearly half of all fuel consumed along the East Coast. Over 45% of gas stations in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and other areas ran dry within days of the shutdown. By May 13th, the situation had grown critical. Fuel prices surged and local governments began to issue warnings about the economic impact. The attack had not only disrupted the flow of gas, but had also brought into question the vulnerability of the nation's critical infrastructure. As Colonial Pipeline scrambled to restore service, the United States government launched an investigation. The FBI, along with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, immediately began tracking the attack's origins. They quickly linked the cybercriminal group behind the attack to DarkSide, a Russian-speaking hacker group with a history of high-profile ransomware operations, Cybersecurity official. The scale of this attack was unprecedented. We immediately began coordinating with Colonial Pipeline and other critical infrastructure sectors to understand the scope of the breach and prevent further attacks. On June 7th, the FBI announced it had successfully recovered $2.3 million of the ransom payment by leveraging a private key to trace the Bitcoin transaction. The funds were seized from a wallet associated with DarkSide, which marked a rare success in the fight against cybercriminals. DarkSide was not alone in this. The group was part of a larger trend of ransomware operators increasingly targeting high-profile, high-impact organizations. Unlike traditional cybercriminals, groups like DarkSide often operate with a ransomware-as-a-service model where other cybercriminals can lease ransomware tools to carry out attacks. Expert cybercrime analyst, ransomware as a service makes it easier for less skilled attackers to carry out highly effective attacks. They simply need to pay for access to the malware and infrastructure, allowing even amateurs to launch devastating cyber attacks. In this case, DarkSide's operation became a flashpoint, revealing how easily cybercriminals could exploit vulnerabilities in even the most critical systems. In the aftermath of the attack, both private and public sectors rushed to bolster cybersecurity defenses. Colonial Pipeline, along with other critical infrastructure operators, invested heavily in securing their networks. The United States government also issued new guidance for securing industrial control systems and enhancing public-private collaboration to defend against such attacks. CISA official, the Colonial Pipeline attack showed us that cybersecurity is no longer just an IT issue, it's a matter of national security. Moving forward, we must secure critical infrastructure with the same rigor we apply to our defense systems. The attack on Colonial Pipeline served as a wake-up call, exposing vulnerabilities that were previously overlooked. But it also spurred new efforts to safeguard the future, with the hope that lessons learned will better prepare the nation for the next cyber battle. In the end, the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack was a stark reminder of the ever-growing threat of cybercrime. It wasn't just a moment of disruption, it was a warning, a call to action to protect our most critical systems in an increasingly digital world. The battle for the security of critical infrastructure is just beginning. As technology advances, so too will the tactics of those who seek to exploit it. And in this new age of cyber warfare, the stakes couldn't be higher.